Revel, nice to see you. Good to see all of you. So wonderful to have all of our guests here. How nice was that last discussion? Didn't that last get you? We can all speak English, but we're all hungry. Yeah, we've got to change things to move in the times that we live in. And I feel like that's also where we're going here, is that things have changed. People are much more accepting, or maybe we're not. And we're realizing that things are not the way they used to be, and we need to change. So, I mean, Neville, if I can begin perhaps with you, as the CEO of the Other Foundation, there are obviously still massive challenges that are faced by the LGBTQI plus community, particularly when it comes to economic opportunities. So perhaps we can kick off the discussion with regard to that.
Yeah, let me start, though, with 2 acknowledgements about how empowering our collaboration has been with Nedbank.
Great.
And to acknowledge Professor Mogale, who's really championed our cause for many years. And it's great to see him speaking here. So the barriers are many, Leanne. Let me put it like this. In the previous panel, you were discussing the obstacles to accessing supply chains. So LGBTI people, over and above all those barriers, face the additional barrier of being LGBTI and the social stigma that goes with that. So I'd summarize it really as the main barrier being stigma, which translates into exclusion, both social exclusion, but very importantly also a personal, internalized exclusion. In our families, in our churches, in our communities, in our cultural practices, and very importantly, in our workplaces. And that stigma translates into an inability to access even opportunities that are there. But some are making significant progress. LGBTI people in business associations, entrepreneurs. In that sphere, the biggest barrier is about joining up more to offer products and services that are of sufficient scale, sufficient quality. When we were briefing about this panel, I indicated not good enough to talk only about problems and barriers. Let me put it like this, the lay of the land in Southern Africa. So when we started our foundation 10 years ago, 1 out of the 13 countries in Southern Africa that we work in had decriminalized homosexuality, South Africa. Today, 7 out of the 13 countries in Southern Africa have decriminalized homosexuality. And if we take that as a proxy indicator, we have huge progress in this region. But in the past 2 years, we are faced with a massive backlash. We see this as a backlash against the progress that has been made. We've seen that in East Africa, growing in West Africa, and very importantly, a spread towards Southern Africa. So our challenge today, our biggest obstacle, is to ring fence, to fireproof Southern Africa against this hate narrative that is spreading across our region. And that hate narrative is targeted at LGBTI people, but it's not only about LGBTI people. It's an anti-rights narrative. It's an anti-democracy narrative. Support for LGBTI causes in Southern Africa, especially by corporates, is a pushback against that anti-rights, anti-democracy narrative, and we need your support to do that, most importantly because in today's world, what shapes the social consciousness of people, especially young people? In the past, our struggles for freedom, equality, against apartheid, against colonialism, shaped our social consciousness. Today, more than ever, corporates, economics, shapes the values and social consciousness of our societies. Corporates have a huge role to play. And the opportunities are great. So in a few months' time, we will be launching, as the other foundation, having worked with McKinsey and Ipsos, a study that sizes the LGBTI market and economic influence in South Africa. And as a little teaser, I can tell you that that is showing that despite these barriers, despite a disproportionate social burden on LGBTI people, the economic contribution is 250 billion rand annually.
Amazing.
And that's an extraordinary market to tap.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity that we need to put into the framing of a story of suffering and exclusion and oppression because it's looking to the future. So our context is one of contradiction, huge progress, significant backlash, but huge opportunity going forward.
And massive threats. You've really opened up my eyes to that conversation because you're not the first person to tell me about the threats, but I hadn't realized that it was from also the perspective of the LGBTQI plus community, because I was speaking to a women activist who worked on the African continent, and it was the same narrative that was being spread through women. It's like, stop with this equal rights rubbish. You go back to our roots where you belong, at home, forming families and doing things that, you fought to equalize, but now go back to that. So, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm really excited to hear the progress. Revel, let me come to you because, I love what Neville has set us up to describe, because we're looking at the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, and the ugly, because it is important that we know this, but also the economic benefits of this incredible community and how much wealth owns it. But how do we sort of look at that inclusive economic environment, and how tangible is it that we can actually see that it's emerging and making a difference?
Yeah, Leanne, I think I'll touch on Neville's point when it comes to the pink rand, and the fact that the pink rand currently is at 250 billion rand, right? But you look at the economic inclusiveness for LGBT persons, and what part do we play within that pink rand if you come from a rural area? If you come from a previously disadvantaged area, what part do you play contributing to that pink rand, right? And this is where, for our foundation as Modern Community Foundation, work with the likes of Bidvest Travel, with the likes of the United Nations, to be able to go into these communities, go on the ground, and make sure that you empower these queer techpreneurs, queer agripreneurs, making sure that you include queer engineeringpreneurs, and you raise them to be able to not just go find a job, but how do we then deal with corporates to be able to even take the jobs to them, to make sure that they are empowered to play a part to the economy as well. Yeah. If you look at the art of drag, I'll be like Ms. Linda said, she's very passionate about it, and I am passionate about the LGBT community. You look at the art of drag, right? I'm not going to say drag queens. I say look at the art of drag. The art of drag has been around since forever. Yeah. Anybody who goes to a gay bar who looks at a drag queen looking at the art of drag is always mesmerized. That's an entrepreneur who has to play their part to the economy. How are we supporting them as LGBT activists and advocates, and making sure that corporates also jump on this to be able to say, I can have a drag queen come to this conference, stand here in her full regalia, and making sure I pay her equally as what I would any other entertainer.
Absolutely.
So the economic inclusion and playing a part to the economy is such a big thing, where the LGBT community has been pushed back so far. Imagine you are black, female, disabled, and queer. You're quadruply marginalized. How do we all work together to get that particular individual out of that state of being marginalized, with understanding what the intersectionalities are for this particular individual and how far back they've been set? How do we capacitate these individuals to making sure that they can even go back to their communities and do better for people like them starting mentorship programs within these rural areas and these locations, making sure that we train people like the SAPS, people like hospital staff. How do we do all of that, ensuring that we don't leave out the security guard at the gate? Because that's the first interaction for an LG person, is the security guard at the gate. And we all look different.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stand in some judgment when somebody looks at me because he sees me as the othered. So how does the other then get a fair chance in corporate to bring themselves, play their part, and contribute to an inclusive economy? We, as a corporate South Africa, are the only ones that can change that. Yeah. And I think it's high time that we understand that the LGBT community, as flamboyant as we can be, as fun as we can be, our lives matter.
Absolutely.
Because we have to look at the journey of what the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are, which is reducing inequalities, which is building stronger communities, which is understanding we got to leave no one behind. And if it's about the head, the heart, and the hands. And when I say that, I speak of it to Mr. Mohale mentioned about fear. And I wrote it down because sometimes in corporate, it's the fear of the top having to drive the LGBT agenda within the corporate. And if you don't know any better, then say, I do not know. Let me get educated and made aware of what the actual struggles are of lived experiences of individuals within this community. So we have a huge role to play as corporates to come together, understand and say, I don't know. There's the other foundation, there's the Modern Community Foundation, there is the likes of the Nedbanks that can train and teach you. And that for us is how we bring people from the LGBT community into the inclusion of economic empowerment. Because if we leave them there, they're never going to have any resources. They're never going to get capacitated. LGBT pageantry has been around for years. Still, it is at the same level where it was 28, 30 years ago. How do we bring about in making that mainstream without making it a judgmental space, but a free and belonging and actual safe spaces for everyone to play their part?
Incredible. So much to think about. Revel, thank you. Thank you for enlightening us, but at the same time offering us, that space to think, to actually take ourselves out of our comfort zones, because we do live in a comfort zone, and realize that there are so many different communities around us, I don't care who you're talking about, that need to feel welcome and a part of this. So we don't even think that. But Nedbank does. And that's what I'm loving. Thandiwe, I mean, there's a massive need for this, that Nedbank has actually got a chairperson of the Nedbank LGBTQI plus forum. So when we look at things like that, this is showing you how we are progressing. How fast we are progressing is what I'm going to ask you, and the kind of things and the help that you provide, and what is it that you're hoping to achieve or have achieved as a forum?
Thanks, Leanne. Just to add on to Revel's comment, I'm very proud to work for Nedbank. I get to wear suits every day, my office drag, so that really is fun for me. But over the years, we have pretty much achieved a lot in the short period that we have been together as a forum. There are policies and procedures that have been implemented within Nedbank that allows every staff member to come in as their authentic self on a daily basis. We have gender-neutral bathrooms, and also there is parental leave that has been amended to cater for both our different gender identity and expressing colleagues. So, just to bring it a little back home, as part of the LGBTI community, what I do realize that there is a power in representation and also allyship, and that is, I guess, as I sit here today, I realize that there has been incredible support that we have received, and with that support, it has allowed me to show up every day. I am very comfortable and confident that with the inclusive spaces that we've created, it pretty much fosters psychological safety.
Yeah, amazing. Guys, time is up already, but I want you, as I did in the previous panel, I just want you to leave us with some food, because we had a mandate from the beginning that this is not going to be a talk shop where we're talking about problems, we want to talk about solutions. So I'm going to ask each one of you as you close up, and Neville, I begin with you. What can I do? What can all of us do to assist in the empowerment of this community, and to just that one thing, something we can do simply in life that we can help?
Yeah. So perhaps the first is understanding. Understanding, first of all, that LGBTI people are not asking for special treatment. They're asking for equal treatment. The second is that if we are to work on transformation, very importantly, we need to also transform ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to transform the way we perceive things, our blind spots, our prejudices. So we need to be transformed people if we are to be transformative. The third point is we need to go beyond visibility. As much as we admire and support workplace affinity groups, which are an important component, we need to translate that visibility in the workplace into real economic benefits for LGBTI and other marginalized people. So advocating internally for access or supply chain diversity, access to supply chains by LGBTI people on the one hand. On the other hand, supporting more joined up networks of LGBTI entrepreneurs, small business owners, is another important practical step to take. Now, having said all of that, we recognize, having worked with many corporates, that this is scary work. It's a bit frightening. People don't know how to do this. They don't know all the technical jargon that goes into LGBTI, gender identity, expression, all of that. But it's a moral imperative. It's a business imperative. It's a risk imperative. Some have argued it's a compliance imperative. The important thing is to start.
Yeah.
To start doing something. And it's a journey. Over time, partnering with groups who are in the know and others who have charted a path that has been uncharted, you can get there. So start doing something.
Start somewhere. Love that. Thank you. Thank you. Revel, for you?
Just to add on to that, I think transformation requires some type of madness. You have to be a bit mad to be able to drive transformation, because you're going to get so many blockages along the way that you just have to carry on fighting it. Yeah. Regardless of what, break down that wall.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to break it, who's going to break it for the people that come after me?
Yeah.
Before me, there were individuals that was ridiculed, that was criticized, that was actually killed for speaking up as an LGBT individual. I have the pleasure of sitting with my peers on a corporate stage, speaking in front of corporate. We can't take that lightly. So as I do it, and the ones that come after us need to carry on doing what we're doing, and even better, so that the generation behind us don't have to fight the same thing. Don't have to stand and be like, I want my right. It's not a sexual right we are advocating for. No. It is a human right we are advocating for. That's it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And Thandiwe, you got the power to leave us with a pearl of wisdom.
So all I can say is, Leanne, is like, the LGBTI community, we are not a risk. And we are not a niche market, but we are a growing market. We are a growing community. So the importance of media advocacy is also something that's very important to the LGBTI community. It allows us to be able to tell our stories that humanize us, as opposed to those stories that dehumanize us. So, I basically want to implore everyone here that's part of any different corporate to please, in your advertising and social media, please just make sure that we see the LGBTQI as part of, representation matters for us as well.
All of you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much for speaking to us today and for just opening our eyes to all of these opportunities available to us. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.